Vance, Witkoff, and Kushner to the Middle East. President Trump this week sent the diplomats to Israel in hopes of keeping his Gaza peace plan alive. Is the deal about to fall apart before getting to the next phase? Well, joining us is Middle East Forum Director Gregg. Gregg, why did the president send this team to Israel when it's really Turkey and Qatar that need to pressure Hamas to lay down its weapons?
I think there's a few reasons, but the most important is to keep confidence on the Israeli side that the American government is dedicated to phase 2 of the Gaza ceasefire plan. And I think that having those who have the permission of the president to negotiate directly with the other side, being envoys Kushner and Witkoff, and also Vice President Vance, who has not been wholly involved in these negotiations up until this point, is to show the level of dedication that the White House is giving to this and the level of seriousness that Washington is investing in this process. And I wouldn't be surprised that after these meetings in Jerusalem, those envoys will go on to Turkey, will go on to Qatar, will go on to Egypt, not just meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu as the American side, but the head of Egyptian intelligence, thereby trying to show the Egyptians are committed to this as well. So we'll see what happens with the rollout, but we're teetering right now on the potential for going back into conflict with Hamas.
I saw a post on X this week from open source intel quoting Hamas senior official Mohammed Nizal, who said Hamas will not disarm, and he stated the ceasefire is only a hudna, a pause to rebuild the terror group's strength. So how concerned are you that the president and his team are negotiating with terrorists, those who will not give up their goal of destroying Israel?
The way that I see this right now is like Grant giving Lee the terms at Appomattox Courthouse. This is an unconditional ceasefire, an unconditional surrender on Hamas's behalf. And if they do not comply, then the president has promised he will allow for IDF forces or an international security force to go in and do the job instead of allowing Hamas to do it by themselves. So I think that that commitment, both promising to engage in dialogue, but if Hamas spurns that dialogue, a full American commitment to allow the Israelis in the West to finish the job against Hamas. So I have no doubt that either by hook or by crook, by ceasefire negotiations or by force, Hamas will be disarmed.
Well, it isn't just Trump. European Union leaders insist that Hamas disarm, and President Trump warned Hamas to get in line or face the consequences.
We made a deal with Hamas that, they're going to be very good, they're going to behave, they're going to be nice, and if they're not, we're going to go and we're going to eradicate them if we have to. They'll be eradicated.
I think this is sort of a repeat of what happened with Ukraine and Russia over the first 6 months of his administration. He tried to meet with President Putin. He had a pretty nasty meeting with President Zelensky in the Oval Office. But at the end of the day, Trump showed that if the other side does not comply with what he is asking for, which I think is a pretty fair deal for Hamas, considering the high crimes that they were involved with on October 7th and for the subsequent 2 years afterwards until the ceasefire came into effect last week, that if Trump is not able to get this by negotiations, he will allow Israel to do it by force. You have this as an instance in 8 other processes that have taken place over the past 10 months, and I think this one will be no different.
Dovie Honig, the founder and CEO of the Orthodox Jewish Chamber of Commerce, wrote an opinion column this week suggesting that Hamas fell into its own trap as President Trump used global optics to free hostages and expose Hamas for what it truly is. And then he argued that Trump's strategy was never about believing Hamas could change. It seemed it was about manipulating the world stage to expose their true nature while protecting Israel's right to act decisively. So is that Trump's plan, in your opinion, to give Israel justification for finishing the job? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think that if you look at a piece that I wrote, which echoed similar ideas back about a month ago in September on the Middle East Forum's website, you'll see that the genius lies in Trump's plan's potential for failure. Not that it was intended to not succeed, but there's a fail-safe, a tripwire here, where if Hamas does not comply, either way, it gives legitimacy to Israel to finish the job, either through agreeing to negotiations and the deployment of an international security force, the disarmament of Hamas. We already have the release of hostages, and also improving Gaza's civilian life. But if they don't comply, there's full justification, just like that columnist said, that there is sort of a built-in kill switch or a dead man switch, if you will, that if the negotiations don't work out, there's full international legitimacy to finish the job.
Gregg, you've been involved in the Middle East for so long, for years. So tell me, where do you think this is all heading?
Frankly, I think that Hamas, unless it has pressure from its interlocutors in Istanbul and in Doha, will keep on trying to justify their possession of weaponry. And this only deals with one front where Hamas is active, in Gaza. There's been no mention of the West Bank, no mention of southern Lebanon, no mention of their bases in other areas throughout the Middle East. And the only way that Hamas will be forced to comply not just with the Trump terms in Gaza, but to turn itself into a political party, which I don't think will ever happen. Hamas will never disarm unless by force in other fronts, is by agreeing to the Trump conditions. And if they do not, Trump will have to force Qatar and Turkey to impose their own measures to kick Hamas out of those two capitals, and in doing so, leave Hamas without a lifeline in Gaza, thereby giving them two options: one, to disarm, or to be destroyed by the IDF.
Okay, seems like the ultimate demise of Hamas. Middle East Forum Director Gregg Roman. Thank you, Gregg, for sharing your insights. We appreciate it.
Thank you.